It's shiny. It's awesome. It's cool. It's a piece of hardware that I can give for my baby boy.
Porque eu não comi nada antes.
You know, absolutely. Hold on, I'm talking, brother. 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 Hold on, I'm talking, brother.
Hello and welcome back to Hold On, I'm Talking, Brother. My name is Joe Greenwood and you are listening to our UFC 278 preview of Usman versus Edwards 2 for the welterweight title. And Tom Ballum, outside of the UFC, it is a big fight weekend. So I'm going to ask for your prediction for the other big fight between MVP and Mike Perry in BKFC. Tom, how are your loins feeling towards that fight that's happening this weekend?
Is that really happening, Joe?
It is actually. It is happening this weekend.
The times they move so fast. I remember Mike Perry's golden days back in the UFC.
Yeah.
The sun-lit up lands of the fighting world. And Michael Venom Page was a bit of a standout for Bellator. So
still in Bellator.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, how are you feeling?
Being given the night off to smash Michael Perry.
Michael Perry, yes. The last time he had that name read out was probably in Family Court or something. So anyway, let's move on, Tom. UFC 278. We were just talking before we started recording. When it's good, it's so good. And when it's bad, we are looking at all-time worst card bad. Fight night at the Apex bad. I think that's a pretty fair assessment, don't you think?
I can see where you're leading us there, Joe, but here on Hold On, I'm Talking, Brother, we're about optimism. We're about the peak of the sport. Yes. We avoid the troughs. So let's start at the peak. Let's talk about what is good before we, unfortunately, are reduced to discussing the worst the UFC has to offer.
Yes. So me and Tom are going to make predictions now for UFC 278's main card. 5 fights. We're going to make a prediction for each fight. If we get the fighter who wins correct, that's 1 point. And if we get the method correct as well, that's 2. 10 points on offer. And Tom, surprisingly, is the defending champion. 2 dodgy wins recently. But he is the champion regardless. And talking of champions, let's talk about pound for pound, number 1 fighter in the world. Welterweight champion Kamaru Usman defends his title against Leon Edwards. This is the second time that they're meeting. The last time was 7 years ago on a fight night prelim in Orlando. Tom, do you think that fight shows us anything for this one?
It's a great question, Joe, because much play has been made of the evolution, not just in Kamaru Usman in becoming the current pound-for-pound champ, the man who loves his hands, the man who loves a knockout, he loves a jab, he loves to hurt people, and he loves to beat people twice. Leon Edwards has also developed and evolved a lot, and I think that fight was pretty pivotal for him in doing that, in helping him to develop. Listening to Leon this week, you're hearing a lot about just how much that weighed on him, how that made him question just how good he really is or how good he can be. But the benefit of hindsight is that he just happens to run into Kamaru Usman on his UFC debut. Now, Kamaru Usman since then, Joe, he has won how many fights in a row? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I can't even count high enough. If he wins this one, Joe, he breaks the record for the most consecutive UFC wins.
Really? I thought he matches it, but he's going to break it.
You might have called me out there, Joe.
Yeah, I have caught you out. He's going to match Anderson Silva's record of 13, I believe, fights in a row. That is phenomenal. And this is going to be, I guess now, we're getting to the stage now with Usman's career of where he stands in the all-time great category, because that's where he's starting to get up to. And now it's starting to be the debate is how many more wins does he need to match and potentially surpass GSP as the all-time great welterweight, and then thus enter the conversation of greatest of all time. If I said to you Usman has 4 more fights in the UFC and he wins all of them, you would probably consider him at least the equal of GSP, wouldn't you?
Well, how many of those fights are against Nate and Nick Diaz?
At least 3.
Well, no, it is very much about the quality of the opponent. We've got to say, in Usman's recent outings, fighting Colby, slightly resurgent Jorge Masvidal, and Gilbert Burns, Usman has put himself in that rarefied air, taking on the challengers who, should be taken on and dispatching them in pretty comfortable fashion. Colby last time out slightly less so. Now the second time
wait,
up
hold
here,
on. You think the second Covington Usman fight was closer than the first one?
No, sorry, I meant the last Colby fight in comparison with the knockout of Jorge Masvidal and the knockout of Gilbert Burns, both of which were prime highlight reel material.
Yeah. Comprehensive.
Particularly that one against Jorge Masvidal down in Jacksonville.
That's one of the best knockouts ever.
Well,
like, it really is. Like, you literally see his soul leaving his body. It's incredible. Like, the sweat flying off of him, and then some of the most disgusting ground and pounds that I've seen outside of Derek Lewis. Like, it is just absolutely ferocious. Usman has really leveled up. People attribute that to Trevor Whitman. With the working of the jab, the fact that he switches stances now and has a strong jab out of both stances, that's really, really impressive. I'm going to put this out there, and I don't think this is too shocking an opinion. I don't think his striking is as good as Leon Edwards. I think that you would be fair in saying that as well, Tom?
Well, according to Edwards, he is the number 1 striker in that division. In the first fight against Usman, he had brief amount of time to show that before Usman implemented quite a heavy wrestling approach. When Edwards was fresh on the feet in the first round, he was able to keep some distance from Usman, and definitely his striking, certainly at that period, was ahead of him. The thing is, Joe, I don't think Usman. Although he is training with Trevor Whitman, they're working on his hands. That is the focus of the camp, and we've seen the developments there. I don't think Usman is naive enough to think that he won't need to wrestle Leon Edwards. I think he's kind of hinted at that, and then that brings us on to Leon Edwards. All right.
Yeah.
Now Leon has gone undefeated since that fight.
Yeah.
However, when you pull up the list of names that he's beaten recently, you're talking about, Nate Diaz last time out. Then there was a slightly heading down the hill, Rafael dos Anjos. There was a Gunnar Nelson before taking a prolonged break, and then Donald Cerrone. So certainly not the same caliber of opposition.
Well, hold on. How much of that, though, is down to him? Because I'm looking here. He had the Tyron Woodley one that was cancelled, and that was just as COVID hit, and that fight was cancelled. And then Gilbert Burns got the fight instead, I think a month or 2 later. And it's like, that was going to be Leon Edwards' breakout moment. We didn't know what stage Woodley was in his career. I actually think in the Burns fight, that was the best performance that he had towards, in his losing streak. He was trying, he was sort of like trying to give something back, but obviously Burns was a lot better than him. And then he had 3 fights against Chimaev cancelled. 3 times that fight was cancelled. And he took that fight when other people were unwilling to do so. So I think that Edwards is one of these whereby his record doesn't highlight how good he is because of the level of opposition, and then also circumstance has not allowed him to do that, because he also had that weird one with Bilal Muhammad with the eye poke, where Muhammad really it was really bad, where he poked Muhammad in the eye and the fight had to be called off. But before that, he was dominating Bilal Muhammad. That first round was one-way traffic, and Muhammad just did not look like he was on the same level as Leon Edwards.
No, well, that brings us nicely into the bigger question, which is not whether Usman can strike with Edwards, but rather whether Edwards can wrestle with Usman. And you referenced there Bilal Muhammad, a pressure wrestler of quite some caliber, who's really put the work on a few guys.
Yeah,
that was no issue for Leon Edwards. We talked about Gunnar Nelson, a man with a grappling heavy approach.
Yeah.
I watched that fight here in Iceland with the natives cheering on their man. And what stood out in that fight is just how strong and how strong a base Edwards has when he was being threatened with kind of grappling exchanges. He was just turning Gunnar Nelson any which way he wanted to. So
I also think Edwards, much like Usman, is very big for this division. Like, he looks big. He looks like he could be a middleweight. Like, if he just bulked up just a little bit. And I think that could also be a part of that. But
he's 6'2", Joe. 6'2".
Yeah,
at welterweight.
he's a big guy. He's a big guy.
74-inch reach.
Yeah, it's also going to be interesting to see how the clinch exchange works in this fight, because if the clinch exchange then goes into wrestling, of course then Usman's going to have that advantage. But if it's clinch exchanges with striking, Edwards' understanding of the clinch exchange, the sort of striking meta, is really like advanced even within MMA. I think he has a super modern game. You know, has a very analytical game. Problem is though, is that game requires a little bit of time to really kick in, which against someone like Usman, you're not really going to get that much time to.
Well, Joe, my big question here, and again you've led very nicely into it, is yes, in the grappling exchanges up against the fence, the place that Usman has found himself, starting with Tyron Woodley, but also later on against other guys, where he's really just leaning on them, wearing them down. In the first Masvidal fight, for example, he's had a lot of success in that position. But as you say, Edwards is pretty strong there himself. Where we saw the mismatch in the first fight, it was when Usman was able to get Edwards down to the mat. Now, my big question is, Joe, does Usman still have the athletic credentials, the caliber, the knees to push a wrestling heavy game on Edwards? I don't think we've seen that recently.
For 5 rounds as well, that would be like incredibly difficult. I think this is the interesting thing with Usman, isn't it? Because, you know, he's 34, 35 now, is he? Like, I don't know if you've got, if you can confirm that for me.
He's 35, Joe, yeah.
He's 35 years old. He had to take quite a bit of time off because of surgery on his hand. Long known that he can't run, so he has to swim and use the elliptical machine because of his damage to his knees. Now, I know that people will say, yes, but we've seen in his fights recently that's not been an issue. He's taken his time off, he's recovered.
Have we seen Usman put on like a chain wrestling, dogged, takedown performance recently?
What I'm saying... No, what I'm saying is that we haven't seen him age. But the thing is that champions they age immediately. And when it happens, it almost happens overnight, and then it becomes very apparent to us. And it's whether that challenger can take advantage of it. You know, if Leon Edwards goes out there and he dominates Usman, we're all going to be thinking, oh man, I think it might be one fight too many for Usman. Maybe the injuries have caught up with him. Maybe the years of wrestling have taken advantage, have taken advantage.
That would be outrageous if that was the consensus.
Yeah,
if Leon goes and does that and that's people's reaction, that is some bullshit right there.
What do you mean? Like
Usman has just fucking smoked the top guys in the division. He's gone on like the highest highlight reel of his career. He's looked better than he ever has. If he gets upset by Edwards, that is a stunning turnaround.
But you know that people are gonna. You know that that's what people are gonna jump on. They're gonna say that he's washed. They'll never give Edwards the credit.
What I want to just hammer home here, though, Joe, like you reference where they're at and where their strengths are. If you find Leon Edwards is able to fend off the kind of grappling pressure against the fence that Usman has kind of patented in recent outings, I think Edwards might well be able to do that, by the way. Then we're going to see, actually, has Usman aged? We haven't seen that against anyone else, because against Colby, he needed his hands. Okay? Against Masvidal, the grappling was enough.
Yeah.
He hasn't had to put on a really wrestling heavy display.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm curious to see if he still has that in him right now. And also I think he'll need it if he wants to beat Leon Edwards on Saturday.
And also when you reference the first Masvidal fight, you know, when you ground out this was Masvidal on a week's notice. Now I know Usman was also on a week's notice, but Usman had been training for Burns. Masvidal had come in. I know he was kind of training, but not really. And then he had to go in and do a horrendous weight cut. And, you know, that wasn't I don't think that was the best of either of those guys. But, when you've got a wrestler who's not at his best against a striker who's not at his best, the wrestler is probably going to take over. That's why they gave Masvidal that second fight. Okay, fair enough. Then that was conclusive. But I agree with you. If Usman has to go to that wrestling game for 5 rounds, I think he'll struggle to do that comprehensively for 5 rounds. I really, really do. And then it's whether the case of, has he done it early enough in the fight to bank rounds, or if he can get Edwards out of there. Do you think that that's the debate here? Can he get Edwards out of there?
I mean, I have seen no evidence to suggest that is possible in Leon Edwards' recent outings. I've seen a man really in his prime, a man who has no question marks over any knees, elbows, nothing like that.
No.
A man full of confidence and a man who fully expects to go in and win. I don't think there's any kind of mental issue there for Leon either. He recognises his shortcomings in the first fight. He's worked on them. He's improved upon them. And perhaps we will have a diminished Usman.
Tom,
Joe,
you're the champ.
I'm the champ.
You go first. You lay down your prediction.
Hold on, son.
Go on.
Hold on. Let's just establish the hierarchy here. As the champ, I will ask you to go first.
You want me to go first?
Yes.
My word. I think this fight is really interesting in terms of these guys' careers and where they're going to be after this fight.
Well, if Edwards wins, fighting each other again, that's for sure.
Yes, that is 100% what's going to happen. We're not going to get Chimaev-Edwards, which is a fight I would love to see. Although maybe you'll get that Masvidal-Edwards fight, perhaps, Easy money for Leon, let's put it that way. Yeah, it would be a trilogy fight. This is going to be... Yeah, it's an interesting stepping stone fight for both of these guys, because if Edwards wins, obviously he's going to go into the trilogy, and then it's real confirmation of he is that good. And British fighters can be that good without having to go to America. This would be a huge moment for British MMA if he could do it. And if Usman wins, he takes those steps then towards the mantle, of the greatest of all time. And I think that is where his head is at in terms of this fight. So, what do I go with? Do I go with me wanting Edwards to win because, I really want a British fighter to win a title? I know I shouldn't be coming out and saying this, but I really do want a British fighter to win it. But I also want Usman to step up into the pantheon. I want him to be on that level. Maybe it's that thing. I've just come back from Greece. I've just been in Athens. I've seen what the gods created. I've seen this. I'd love to go to the MMA Hall of Fame and see Usman's head carved in marble in front of me. The greatest of all time. I was there seeing the greatest of all time. And you know what I'm going to say? I think we're going to see that first step towards the greatest of all time. I've gone for Kamaru Usman by decision. It breaks my heart. I would love Leon Edwards to win this fight. And if he does, I'll be so happy. But if past is prologue, I have to go with Usman. Usman decision.
I have to say, you haven't shocked me, Joe. You are in the consensus sleeping on Leon Edwards, who I think is a major hiccup. A serious banana skin for Usman. Not a whole lot of credit going to Edwards. Certainly not befitting of his caliber. I think you match up Edwards with the rest of the top of the division, and he's probably going in, or he should be going in, as the favourite. In this fight, he's 3-1 against.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm putting money on that. I'm putting money on that.
Which to me are extraordinary odds given the details we've just outlined. I think Leon has the serious potential to upset Kamaru Usman, and I've picked Kamaru Usman to win by decision. Because he's the champ, all right? He's the goddamn champ, and he's earned that right. He's earned that right, and Holden, I'm talking brother, will stand behind him until he falls, and then we'll switch the bandwagon over to Leon, as is our right.
Yeah.
I mean, I really think Leon has a great chance, a much better chance than what's being put on him.
I really do.
But just what Usman's done recently, it's hard to.
I think yeah, I think if Usman as well wins this, and then, as I said, takes on those next, and for me, the next 4 fights are quite clear for Usman if he's going to become the greatest of all time. It's Edwards, Chimaev, Rachmanov, and then probably some cash-in fight against Conor McGregor. Like, those are the 4 fights. Or, like, those 3 guys, I feel like if he beats those 3, that is, in terms of a title reign, as good as anyone. Like, if he can beat those 3, I would have no problem putting him on the same level as GSP. And then if he goes up to light heavyweight and wins that title, which is what he is hinting at, I mean, no doubt in my mind then he would be the greatest of all time. But anyway, we are a couple years away from that.
Yeah, let's move on to a fight that isn't about greatness. Right?
No. This is about what the human body can become. Okay.
Well,
Luke Rockhold versus Paulo Costa.
Yeah, Luke Rockhold versus Paulo Costa. It's not about the rankings, Joe. It's not about becoming the GOAT.
It's about good vibes. Like, this is what this fight is about. This is insane. I love this fight, by the way. I really do. And also, I don't know if you've seen it this week, I love Luke Rockhold. I've become a big Luke Rockhold. Have you seen him this week? What he's been talking about?
Well, you'll have to refresh us.
He's been talking about fighter pay outright and calling the UFC the mafia. Talking about when he lost the fight against Bisping, how they basically put a target on him and just kind of wanted to cash in. He talked about the bonuses, going 50 grand is bullshit. If you look at, they're making billions off of us and they're giving us 50 grand, that's crumbs. That's nothing. They should be rewarding us. They don't care about us. They should be giving us healthcare. They should be, thinking about us long term. They should be, rewarding us for them making all that money. Socialist Luke Rockhold is not something I was expecting this week, but brother, we got it. We got Socialist Luke Rockhold, and he's babyfaced himself. I can't quite believe it, but Luke Rockhold has made himself a babyface. Tom, have you come round to the Church of Rockhold?
No.
Okay.
I have not, Joe. No, he's been making me cringe in all the right places, just like he always has. The guy he's something else.
Can you describe the picture I sent you of Rockhold from the countdown video? Can you describe what that was?
I wish there were some accompanying quotes to go with it. I mean, it was the man, I think he had his arms wrapped around the back of his head and an open fire behind him.
A cream jumper,
yes,
with like a white trousers.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, looking like a real 70s pornographer. It was a one hell of a look. But I mean, what do we say about Rockhold? It's 3 years since he last fought. He fought at light heavyweight in his last fight where he got starched by Jan Blachowicz. In an interview with Daniel Cormier this week, they both said, yeah, I took him lightly. And Cormier even said this of like, yeah, I didn't think Jan was that. And it was a bad idea to tell him to do that, to move up to light heavyweight. His last middleweight fight was that the Yoel Romero interim title fight, where Romero missed weight and then removed Rockhold from this mortal coil.
Yeah, that was one of the most hellacious knockouts. For those who don't remember it, Romero hit him with a huge shot. Rockhold folded to the mat, but with a kind of vague hint of consciousness still etched across his face, and that sent Romero crazy, and he proceeded to smash his head with a huge uppercut whilst he was kind of slumped against the fence. It was...
Before, then, afterwards, hugging him and kissing him after Rockhold is like resuming consciousness. Why is this roided freak kissing me? So, yeah, is it hard to say what Rockhold we're going to see? I mean, the worry is as well is the chin. It's suspects, really. Really kind of has been since the Belfort fight, don't you think? Or is it the Bisping one that really sort of highlighted it? Because, Bisping was not the hardest hitter, and he managed to send Rockhold to sleep. And against Paulo Costa, a marauder, a man who throws just humongous shots. I mean, has he just been set up here to be knocked out and then released from the UFC?
Well, basically, we've got two guys who are in some choppy waters right now. I mean, let's not pretend that Paulo Costa has had it plain sailing after being humiliated back in 2020 by Adesanya. Cheers to that.
As I sip on the red wine.
Yeah. Bit of Rockhold etched across your face right now, Joe, too.
No, I'm referencing Costa. You remember his wine excuse against Adesanya?
That he was drunk.
Yeah.
Because he certainly looked it, Joe. I mean, he got absolutely taken apart with laser precision. All right, he got showed that he cannot cut the cage off. He doesn't have the kind of ring craft to manage any fighter who doesn't just stand in front of him. All right, and swing. So look, the question is, does Rockhold have the wherewithal to stand up to that pressure and escape out the side, implement a kickboxing game a la Adesanya, a la Rockhold, the kickboxer?
A wrestler, a grappler as well, a tremendous grappler, but not very good takedowns for Rockhold. He's never been particularly strong at them. He's got a tremendous kicking game though. That's sort of the question mark kick is the main one, isn't it? That sort of flicking sort of motion that he has. He's very good at that, and also the body. It's
fantastic, Joe, but it's a huge exaggerated motion that's perfect for a man who wants to close the distance against you.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, Rockhold's takedown accuracy is 30%.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I expect these guys to trade, and it's hard to look away from those recent thunderous knockout losses for Rockhold. But again, Costa, he got humiliated by Adesanya, and then comprehensively outpointed, out-wrestled, out-staminaed, outworked by Marvin Vettori. But in that, he showed that he wasn't completely finished as a fighter. You know?
No, far from it.
He managed to carry himself into the later rounds. He didn't gas. In a way, he answered some questions, because after that Adesanya loss, I half expected him to retire immediately.
Right. I mean, losing to Adesanya and Vettori, there's no shame to that. Like, I guess it's the manner of the Adesanya one, but I guess that's kind of what happens, isn't it? If you don't just play it safe against Adesanya, if you just walk forward and take those kicks, and you don't just play it safe in the way that Whittaker and Cannonier did in the last two title fights, that is what's going to happen against Adesanya. I'm
sorry, Joe. That highlighted the flaws in Paulo Costa's game, that he didn't spot that, and that he did just stand in the firing line and get picked apart.
But then what do you do in that fight? Do you just have to walk forward and try and do something, or do you just have to hang back and just get outpointed?
So are you saying choose between a points loss or getting knocked out and then ridden in front of in front of everybody?
I forgot that. Yeah.
Yes,
all right,
exactly.
I'll take the points loss.
Now,
I'll cruise to a decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Now look, is Rockhold washed, Joe? Yes or no? Let's say your prediction.
Because I've gone for a Luke Rockhold decision. I'm fired up, brother. I want him to win. And it's no disrespect to Paulo Costa. I want Rockhold to win. What he's been saying this week, he's pissed off, he's angry, and I love it. And he's calling the UFC out about fighter pay. But I fear he's washed, and I fear that he's going to get brutally knocked out. But I've gone for a Rockhold decision. Let's see if this old dog's got something left in him.
Joe, in these last few weeks, in the absence of any major cards, I have been picking fighters who have question marks against them kind of at the end of their careers. Do they have one last showing? Now, Dominic Cruz getting his face crushed last week by young Marlon Vera has showed me the error of my ways. And for that reason, I have picked Costa, who, by the way, is a comprehensive favourite. Not as comprehensive as Usman, but a comprehensive favourite. I think he's going to knock out Rockhold. I think the ghost of Romero looms over him, and he will return to the shadow realm.
I think that's a fair prediction. I've made an emotional prediction.
Champ shit only right here, Joe. Now, champs. Jose Aldo. He's fighting Merab Dvalishvili, the wrestling machine down in Bantemweight.
Yeah.
What stands out to you about this fight?
What stands out to me is how is Dvalishvili going to draw Aldo out, because Aldo is quite a reserved fighter now, but methodical, strong fighter, and whether he can actually take a punch. Because that Moraes fight was incredible. Turned into a zombie, and then just steamrolled him after almost getting finished. I feel like if he's in that position against Aldo, I don't think Aldo will make the same mistakes that Moraes did, and that is what I want to see in this. And also, across 3 rounds, Merab has got incredible cardio. He is an absolute machine. And is he going to weaponize that cardio? Is he just going to be chaining takedowns, taking Aldo down, working him over and over and over again? That, to me, is the 2 sort of images that I'm playing with in this fight.
Yeah,
what about you?
Yeah, I mean, that's the fear for anybody against Merab, is they just get run over by the train. Now, it's clearly Jose is going to have to hurt him, and he's going to have to make him think twice about rushing through him. Can Jose Aldo do that? Yes, for sure he can. And as you referenced, it's perfect, the Marlon Moraes fight, which was Merab's last time out, because it just shows the risks inherent in not taking credentialed strikers seriously, even if you are a great wrestler. So, yeah.
But Merab is kind of a weird guy, isn't he? Because he's got everything that you would think for a guy who's just going to dominate, but he's got kind of weird losses. I mean, a loss to Ricky Simone's not a big deal, but who's the other guy? Frankie Sainz is the other guy he's lost to in the UFC. Like, this is a guy who I think a lot of people are kind of unanimous that he's going to be a champion, contender, if not bantamweight champion. Yet he has these weird marks against him. It's whether he can put that to one side now, and maybe that Moraes fight is an example of that he has evolved and managed to implement a game plan now where if he is in trouble, it's just take him down and batter him as quickly as you can, as comprehensively as you can. I wonder as well if Aldo's actually going to implement leg kicks in this as well, because to try and take away fabled, yeah. I mean,
but we haven't seen them in so long, Joe. I start to question if they were ever even real.
Well, yeah, I don't.
I mean, then like anyone on a chessboard, or if you had these guys in top trumps, and you're seeing this wrestler come at you, whose respect you need to earn. Good God, you're going to kick their legs.
Yeah.
But Jose, he's been really reluctant to do that. Now, looking at Jose Aldo, you look at his losses, which, you actually have to go back a couple of years. He is on a 3-fight streak again now. Marlon Vera, Pedro Munoz, and Rob Font. Some very tough competition, top 10 bantamweights.
And, by the way, comprehensive wins as well. Like, really, really comprehensive wins. And shut down contenders.
Yeah.
Particularly in Vera and Font. 2 guys who were like, oh, maybe this guy's got... When Vera took that Aldo fight, I think a lot of people were like, oh, Aldo off that Jan loss, Vera on the come-up. And Aldo schooled him. Like, he was just like, this is how a champion fights, brother. Like, this is what the big boys do.
This is just it, Joe. He's been looking great. He doesn't seem to have skipped a beat. And then you go back and you look at, the losses that he did endure to the likes of Max Holloway, of course, and Volkanovski back when he was fighting at featherweight. Since then to Petr Yan, and a pretty strange bantamweight debut against Moraes before Moraes dropped off the face of the earth. Now, none of those guys fight like Merab Dvalishvili.
No.
And I don't think Merab can follow the same kind of blueprint as Volkanovski or Petr Yan.
No.
Like, in terms of the frenetic striking, managing the distance perfectly well, and actually, in the case of Petr Yan, just outlasting Aldo over the 5 rounds. It was only in those last rounds that Yan finally actually truly got the better, finally finishing him around 5. But if you remember, the first 3 rounds were frenetic and ferocious, and Aldo stood with him the whole way. So, to me, I think it's a tall order for Merab. He has to beat Aldo in a way that nobody has beaten Aldo. Can he do it?
Yeah, I've gone for Merab Dvalishvili by knockout. I think he's going to catch Aldo behind the ear and ground and pound him out.
Conor McGregor. Oh, okay. I thought you meant like freak punch knockout.
No. I think his speed and I think his cardio is going to be the thing that dominates him over Aldo. And I love Aldo. Aldo's one of my all-time favorite fighters, but I can't look past Merab. I really, really can't. I think he's a really impressive fighter who has refined his game, who has come through adversity, has become better for it. And I've got to go with Merab. I think a pick for Aldo is a fair one. But again, talking about Usman, talking about Rockhold, when does age catch up with these guys? You know, we've seen it with Aldo. We've seen him age catch up with him, and then he's turned it back. I mean, the move to Bantamweight, I remember when people were talking about the move, they're like, oh my God, what's he doing? Like, this is desperate. And then turns it round, like, revitalizes himself. And even in the Holloway losses, by the way, those are real, like, I'm losing, and I may lose this fight, but I'm going to give everything in this loss. I'm not going to go out, like, I'm not going to give up here. But I think I can really see Merab winning this and winning it comprehensively and putting his flag in the ground and being like, I'm the number one contender. I got next.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't see this fight like that at all, Joe.
Wow. What have you come for?
Yeah, I really don't. I mean, I think what you've said about Merab is very true. In that, you know, he certainly looked like a prospect, looked like a tough matchup for pretty much everybody in that division. I think the likes of, let's say, Corey Sanhagen, perhaps even Petr Yan, now looking at his fight with Aljamain. I think they would really want to avoid Merab. But I think Aldo might be that one name that's a really tough out for him. And I've picked Aldo to win the fight.
Wow.
I've picked Aldo to win by decision.
Wow.
Decision.
You think he's going to break out those old dog tricks and just...
Yeah, I think he can do enough to create the space to do more damage than Merab. I don't think Merab will just run through him. And I think if Merab's not careful, he'll get kneed in the face like Chad Mendes.
Oh, that's a good shout, that is. That's a good shout. Right, Tom. We've had our starter, we've had our main course, we've had our dessert. Now it's time to pay the bill. Like, Lucy Pudilova versus Yanan Wu at women's bantamweight. And Tom, my main question for you is this: why does this division exist? Like, really?
Well, Joe, I mean, that is a legitimate question at all times. But I have a even more pertinent one. Why is it on the main card?
Yes, why is it on the main card?
And why? Look, let me just break it down for you right here. All right. I don't know who Wu Yanan is, but I do have the power to Google her name and find out she's lost 3 fights on the bounce. 3 fights. You should be cut, love. You certainly should be fighting. Shouldn't be fighting on the main card. And then,
do you know what her record is in the UFC? By the way,
go for it.
1 win, 4 losses.
I'm just letting that hang out there. Now we come to Lucy Pudilova, Joe. Now she was so bad she did actually got cut from the UFC. She lost 4 in a row and she was finally, mercifully, sent back to the Czech Republic. Won a few over there, lost 1. UFC needed to fill out the division again. She's come back and she's on the main card. What is going on? Bro, what is going on? How can you treat us like this?
Bro, she had 4 losses in a row. So she lost her debut in the UFC, won 2 in a row, and then lost 4, including losses to Irene Aldana, Liz Carmouche, and Antonina Shevchenko.
The most damning of them all.
Yeah, this is shit. Like, let's be honest, this is absolute shit.
This is shit, and this is likely, Joe, how you're gonna upset me and take my belt, and probably you're going to consider it to be...
Give me your prediction.
Joe, look, I'll break it down for you right here. Lucy Pudilova, her reach is 67 inches, 67 and a half.
Yeah.
Right? That number, 67 and a half, is higher than 66 inches, which is Wu Jianan's reach. And so I've picked Lucy Pudilova to win by decision on points. By outstriking her opponent.
Yeah, I got Pudilova by decision just purely out of...
a fellow connoisseur of the sport, I see.
Yeah, she just won some fights recently, so I'm going to give her that. Right, that's a terrible fight. Also, a terrible fight. Apparently this is happening at light heavyweight. Tyson Pedro versus Harry Hunsucker. Harry Hunsucker, who fought at heavyweight, I believe, hasn't he? That's his division. Yes, indeed. This is a terrible fight as well. Basically, pick your poison of jabroni losses. So Harry Hunsucker has lost to Jared Vanderaa, Tai Tuivasa, and then he lost to Justin Taffa by head kick. I didn't even know Taffa could get his foot that high. Whereas Tyson Pedro has lost to, get this, Mauricio Shogun Rua, Ovin St. Preux, and your boy Ilia Latifi. Now this is shit. Absolute shit.
Yeah. Joe, it's just outrageous. I am outrageous. Like, Harry Hunsucker is absolutely garbage. I don't have any other words. He's a total bum. He's so bad, Joe, that when I was preparing as the professional that I am, I was Googling Harry Hunsucker and I came across a video of him with an interview before this fight. And I thought the title of the interview was Harry Hunsucker on people who talk shit about all his knockout losses.
Right.
I thought that was the title of the video. Like, he was going to go on there and say, like, yeah, people say I'm crap, but it doesn't bother me.
They don't know what it takes, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I'm a fighter. I'm a real man. Exactly. Joe, that wasn't even the title of the video, but I couldn't even recall the real title of the video because I was convinced that's what it must be, because what else could he possibly be talking about? Now, Joe... Tyson Pedro, I think he's going to win this fight. I think he's going to win it by TKO, by being less of a bum. I think you had a little bit more you wanted to say about Tyson Pedro, though.
Did I? Did I? My main point is that he lost to Ilia Latifi, which is the most damning indictment possible. I've gone for Harry Hunsucker by knockout, just to the fact, because, bro, if you're losing to Latifi, I can't take you seriously. I cannot take you seriously. He lost to him by unanimous decision. Like, he lost to Latifi unanimously. And by the way, his last fight against Ike Villanueva, right? That was in 2022. His fight before that was against Shogun Rua in 2018. This is shit. Like, this is absolute shit. I almost feel like I'm going to fast forward these fights. I'm not. I'll watch it properly. But my God, like, it is... Like, if I got captured by the North Koreans, this is what they would have to show me for me to be like, all right, this is where the missiles are.
Yeah. Now, Joe, like, what about the prelims? Is there something in there that the fans should look at?
No. No. There's nothing there. No, all right. There's one fight that stood out for me. Women's flyweight. Miranda Maverick is back against Shanna Young. This is interesting to me, mostly for Maverick, because she had a couple of losses there to a couple of other young contenders in Macy Barber and Erin Blanchfield. Sort of hit that wall against basically her peers. And see whether she can start getting that back together. I've always been impressed by her kickboxing for, women's MMA. Let's be honest, generally not very good. And when you find someone who is actually pretty good, I'm always pretty happy to find that. I'd be interested to see if she can start to build herself back up. She already got a win against Sabina Matzo. Shanna Young, she's been in the UFC. She's had 3 fights, won 1, lost 2. Again, be interested to see if Maverick can start putting it back together and build herself back up in a division whereby if you get 4 wins in a row, you get a title shot against Valentina Shevchenko, which is obviously what your girl, what's her name? Meatball Molly McCann is trying to do. So, I think that's an interesting one, just to see if there's a young fighter can start to turn it back round. Tom, anything for you standing out on these atrocious prelims?
Yeah, I could see that was through gritted teeth, Joe. I am also pretty appalled by the state of these prelims. It's really disappointing because we do have 3 great fights on the main card, and then clearly they've just tossed us some absolute scraps. Picking one fight is the headline of the prelims. Romanov versus Tybura at heavyweight. Tybura, the veteran, he's been there against everyone. He's all right. He's not a bum.
He's good. He's good.
He would
He's good.
He would handle Tyson Pedro and Hans Tucker.
Yeah, but also it's like Tybura is one of those as well where it's just like if you can't beat Tybura, it's like you're gonna struggle a bit further up, and it's like if you smoke Tybura, it's like okay, you're actually good for heavyweight. And Romanov, who is undefeated, this is the test to see if he's actually worth something this division.
Yeah, I mean, you've called it exactly right there, Joe. I mean, just to highlight, Tybura, like TKO over Walt Harris, TKO over Greg Hardy, decision over Ben Rothwell on his return. But he's lost to Volkov, he's lost to Lewis, he's lost to Verdum. So absolutely stands there.
Do you remember that Volkov fight?
Yeah. It
was very odd, wasn't it?
Volkov took the second round off. That was the fight.
Yeah, he literally didn't fight in the second round, and allowed Tybura to get back into it for some reason. So, perhaps he knew he wasn't going to knock him out.
Romanov, 5 fights already in the UFC without garnering much attention whatsoever. This is definitely the biggest name for him now. So, a big win here, and we've got another fighter in the heavyweight division worth watching. Young guy as well, so I guess I hope for a Romanov win.
Let's go back a week. Last week, me and you made predictions for the Marlon Vera versus Dominic Cruz fight night. You chose Dominic Cruz by decision. I chose Marlon Vera to win. Vera wins by knockout. Hell of a performance from Vera, don't you think?
Well, kind of. Now, like 2 rounds in, Joe, I was feeling pretty happy with my pick. I had seen a few things that concerned me.
Like getting knocked to the ground a few times?
Namely, any strike connecting, sending Cruz very briefly to the mat. That was, slight bubbling concern for me and my prediction. But, I think Cruz was pretty comfortable in those first 2 rounds. I don't know how you saw it.
Yeah, I think that this fight kind of outlined Marlon Vera as a fighter. Of like, I'm gonna get my read on you, and then I'm gonna finish you. And you saw that. You saw that in, I think it was in the second round. He threw the high kick from an orthodox stance, and Cruz ducked out away, and that was the same move that led to the knockout when he switched it to a southpaw stance. Cruz with the same escape, Vera with the high kick. I thought the kicking game from Vera was very impressive in this fight. But also, it was one of those where Dominic Cruz, in losing as a veteran, kind of made me realise he's got something still to give. Like, I thought he was really impressive, actually. I thought he actually went out there and put on a good performance. And I want to see him still fight in the UFC, but I don't want to see him fight Marlon Vera. That's the thing. I don't want to see him
That's very, very interesting, Joe, because, in the preview pod when we were looking ahead to this fight, I was saying that, Cruz hasn't been definitively shown to be past it. I was kind of defending his losses, looking at his record and thinking he might have one last run in him. And if he's got one more run in him, then I want to watch him. However, the result of this fight was that he has lost a yard. You could see that, and of course, Vera then showed it in spectacular fashion. As you say, feinting in a way that made Cruz exit straight onto to a high kick, which then folded his nose on impact and sent him sprawling to the mat. Joe, it's not a good look for a late 30-year-old commentator with a lot of injuries in a killer division. The tests only get tougher. The damage only takes longer to recover from. For me, left this fight thinking Cruz should hang it up. So that is the duopoly of this sport.
My problem with Cruz is that I would like to see him fight again, but it's like those fights that would be ideal for him. There aren't many. Frankie Edgar's retiring in November. And then Jose Aldo.
Joe, wait,
that's the other one.
Let me stop you. Go on. That. You're telling me you want to watch Frankie Edgar versus Dominic Cruz?
Yeah. For curiosity's sake. Do you know what I mean? Like, you go to the zoo.
For nostalgia's sake.
Yeah, why not? Like, I just want to... Listen, bro, this is the fight game we're talking about. This is built on freak shit, okay? And I want to see some freaky shit, all right? And Dominic Cruz versus Frankie Edgar in 2022, that's some freaky shit I just want to see. Like what? Hold on. Frankie Edgar has his retirement fight. I know Cruz isn't going to have the Edgar fight. It's going to be fucking Ricky Simone most likely, and he's going to smash Edgar, and then he's going to move on to fighting someone who's actually worthwhile. But if next year, you find out there's a fight night that's being headlined by Aldo versus Cruz, you're not going to be interested in that, to think like, finally get to see the two.
I'm going to be asking what has happened to Jose Aldo. Not another.
He's lost to Dvalishvili. He got knocked out and ground and pounded.
Oh, that's a tragic scene to imagine, because Aldo, he seems like he's resurgent. That would make me sad, Joe. I mean, look, Frankie Edgar got head kicked by Marlon Vera. He shouldn't be fighting anymore. Dominic Cruz got head kicked by Marlon Vera. Shouldn't be fighting anymore.
I think that's almost like an indictment of Vera. I feel like that's like you're saying, like, you've lost to this, shit can. Like, you should not be losing to this guy.
I'll say this. I don't think you catch Dominic Cruz in his prime with that head kick.
I think you do, if you're Marlon Vera. Like, I think that's what their styles matching up. Like, I feel like Cruz's style doesn't really suit these younger guys.
I thought you could see in this fight that Cruz has lost a yard.
He's definitely lost a step, but I feel like, well, Cejudo kind of showed the way, didn't he? That literally all you have to do is kick his legs, and then you can get the better of him. Anyway, let's move on. Nate Landwehr versus David Onama. Some people are saying fight of the year, to which I say, shut your fucking mouth. That is not the fight of the year. I'm not having a man walking away in the middle of the fight waving towards the crowd as the fight of the year. It was very entertaining, and it was a lot of fun. But, it was a fun fight, wasn't
Joe,
it?
it would have been fucking great if Onama had finished him in that final flurry. Then it could have been fight of the year. I would love that. But no, it didn't really do it for me. It was a bit of fun. I don't know. I'm not having Nate Landwehr as some kind of like folk hero star off the back of displays like that.
Yeah.
I mean, Onama was totally gassed. Totally gassed.
Oh, he was shattered, that man. Shattered. And then kept going. Like, in the third round, was like landing some pretty big shots.
But Landwehr created the space for that, And Landwehr ultimately couldn't finish him.
Yeah, actually, that's interesting. A lot of people are skipping that. It's just like, how did you not finish this guy who is quite literally exhausted? Like, he is got nothing left. And his coach is saying to him, do you still want to fight? Like, if Krause had thrown the towel in, then would you have... do you think that's the right decision?
That was one of the talking points from the fight. I think Krause should have thrown the towel in. I don't like it when fighters are asked, do you want to fight? They have no choice but to either not say anything or murmur like yes. Onama didn't kind of defiantly say, yeah, man. Like, he didn't really give some oomph.
How dare you ask me that question?
Yeah, exactly. I think with his response, you could see that he wasn't ready to go out and fight some more, and they should have stopped it. That's what I think.
Speaking of no longer wanting to fight, this past weekend, Rory McDonald retires. The great what could have been, don't you think? Went to Bellator after leaving the UFC, won their title, had some good wins there, lost the title, had a weird fight with John Fitch where he went to a draw, and then he said afterwards, God is telling me maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore. And it's just like, okay, bro, I really don't think you should be doing this. Goes to the PFL, sees that $1 million prize at the end of the rainbow, and proceeds to get starched by a bloke who got the fight on 2 days' notice due to McDonald's original opponent not getting a visa. And also, weirdly enough, this was in Cardiff. The PFL came to Cardiff this past weekend.
It's a hard sport, but Rory McDonald has earned a spot on the pod, remembering his epic title fight with Robbie Lawler, one that will surely enter the UFC Hall of Fame. He'll always had that, but he's another one of those men, Joe. He just left a little bit of his soul in that ring.
Yeah, he was never the same as that Lawler fight, was he? No. Like, I know he had the win over Douglas Lima. I know that he kind of did look refreshed in Bellator, but not the same guy. He had an interview with Ariel this week where he says he's going to go into real estate, and fuck me, you hope that the paperwork's all right on those houses. Let's also speak about, I think you're more sad about this. Shane Burgos has left the UFC.
Joe,
joined the PFL.
And I want to put this out there for the listeners. I wanted to lead with this. I wanted to, especially with some of the dross that was served on this card that we've just went through. The loss of Shane Burgos to the UFC is monumental.
Yeah. Dana even said it this week. I don't know how we let this guy go, and there's a major problem there. Like, could you imagine, Eric Ten Hag coming out and being like, yeah, there's a major issue in, us selling Bruno Fernandes. Like, that something majorly bad happened there. Like, this is bizarre. Really, really bizarre moment. I mean, Burgos announced it on Ariel Helwani's show. He said that he's getting paid a lot more, 6 figures more than whatever the UFC could have offered, is what he said. Ariel asked the question then, would it take a couple fights in the UFC to make this the money for one PFL fight? And he said yes. So Burgos has said, it's a financial decision. I had to make that decision. And I do not blame him for it. But I'm gutted. Because, let's be honest, me and you ain't doing a PFL preview anytime soon. And I love a bit of Shane Burgos. I think he's a tremendous fighter. But I don't blame him.
Totally rational decision. Respect it. Appreciate it for him and his family. Can't criticise that, but entering the PFL means you basically no longer exist. To hold on, I'm talking brother. And that's a great tragedy. This is a man who put in 4 fight of the night performances in his time in the UFC. Memorable fights against, of course, Edson Barbosa, Calvin Kattar, Charles Jourdain last time out.
Billy Quarantillo.
The Quarantillo fight. Yeah, I mean, Shane Burgos is only 31 years of age. So much potential.
But he's making the right decision, because he can go to the PFL, fight there for 2-3 years, and then come back to the UFC and make even more money, make his name elsewhere. Like, I really do think that there is a path for some of these guys to go out to these other organisations, particularly if you're, an upper sort of level quality fighter like a Burgos. Go there, make some more money, make your name there, and then come back to the UFC because you got more leverage in negotiating.
Like Rory McDonald, Joe?
No, not like like Justin Gaethje. Like World Series of Fights.
Part of the UFC, though.
I know, but he built his name up and he had big fights, and he was Gaethje. His fights were more well watched in World Series of Fighting than they were in the UFC in terms of television viewers. Like, I think one of his fights had something like 5 million viewers. And then he goes to the UFC and he's making his first fight in the UFC. He's making 500,000. Fight pay keeps coming up. I think it's the right thing to do.
I can't knock it. It's just it's a huge loss to our sport.
It's a huge loss to his podcast, is what it is, Tom.
Yeah,
that's the real loss here. Right, Tom. Let's go over the main card again. We're going to go through our predictions one more time. Yet again, we made predictions. 1 point if we get the winner of the fight correct. 2 points if we get the method. First off, Tyson Pedro, Harry Hunsucker. I've gone for Hunsucker by knockout. Tom?
It's a Tyson Pedro knockout for me.
Pudilova versus... What's this Chinese lady's name?
Yuanan.
Yuanan. Both gone for Pudilova by decision.
Yeah, by reach advantage for me.
Reach advantage for sure. Jose Aldo versus Merab Dvalishvili. Tom?
It's a Jose Aldo decision, baby.
Merab Dvalishvili by knockout for me. Paulo Costa versus Luke Rockhold. For some reason, I've gone for Luke Rockhold by decision. My heart wants what it wants, Tom.
Your heart wants you to be a loser, Joe. I picked Paulo Costa to keep me as the champ by KO.
So it would be too late by then anyway. That Hunsucker knockout would have taken me over. And then last but not least, for the welterweight titles, Kamaru Usman defends against Leon Edwards. We've both gone for Usman by decision, although both lent heavily towards an Edwards decision. My £10 will be going on Leon Edwards, though.
That's the great value bet of the weekend. I mean,
for sure.
It's I gotta say, the more I look at it, the more I think Edwards is well positioned for somehow what would be a huge upset. So I'm not sure about Kamaru, but he's earned the right to be picked by Hold On, I'm Talking Brother.
Listeners, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to email us, you can contact us at holdonbrother69@gmail.com. We'll be back next week to break down this card and all the joys that come with it. Tom, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Joe.
And listeners, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week.
Bye,
See you
everybody.
then.